This video looks at the intensity of behavior and its impact on outcome in Motif. Today we're working with the Motiflix dataset, which mimics the kind of data you would see in a video streaming service. We're picking up at a place we were at in the conversion video, where we've sessionized the data. We've taken every user sequence and turned it into one row per session. And we've matched on the start of each session, followed by anything, followed by the search page, anything, and then watch start. Today we want to understand the amount or intensity of search behavior and how that impacts conversion to watch start. The first thing I'm going to do is actually remove everything ahead of that first watch start. So right now I have a star that basically represents anything or nothing that occurs ahead of that first watch start. I'm going to give this data a label. I'm going to call it choosing, if I spell that right. So just like with the match split, I used choosing as the label or tag, and inside the parentheses there's nothing, which will match on any event. And then the star after it says 0 or more times. And as you can see, I kind of vacuum up all the events ahead of the first watch start, and I give them a label called choosing. And that could be 0 events, it could be 100 events, all of them ahead of that first watch start. Now, a user might have some events that occur after that watch start that I'm not interested in right now. I really want to focus on that first conversion to watch start and count how many searches happen ahead of it. So I'm going to do something kind of radical here. I'm going to replace SEQ, which is the reserved word that references the entire sequence, and I'm going to replace the entire sequence with just the choosing portion of the sequence. And so basically I've erased the watch start event and everything after it, and I just have the things that led up to it. That's great, except I lost whether or not the user actually did a watch start. So ahead of that replace, I'm going to set a sequence dimension called hasWatched, and I'm going to say if watch start, which basically means if watch start exists, I'm going to say 1, if not a 0. And so I've saved that conversion as a 1 or 0 under a variable or a dimension called hasWatched, and then I've deleted the watch start and everything after it. Great. Now this is ready to kind of analyze that behavior ahead of that first watch start event. So I'm going to do something else radical. I'm going to do another match split, and this time on search page. So what this does is basically split each session into multiple rows if there were multiple searches. If there's no searches, it stays the same. If there's multiple searches, I'm getting multiple rows. That's a little confusing, but it's a helpful way to begin counting that behavior. I basically split it up, and then I group it back together and count it. Every time we do a split, we give you these two automatic variables, split index and split count. Index is, just what it sounds like, the index from 0 to 1 to 2, 3, however many there are, and count, which is essentially the max value of that split index, the total number that occurred. So this user did 2 searches within the session, this user did 4 searches within that session, and so on. A great thing about a match split is that you can do a combine right after it. I'm going to actually do it on a separate line. And I'm going to set a new value here. And this is a special way where I don't use set, but as part of combine, I can set a new value. This is going to be num searches. And I'm going to set that equal to the max of split index. So if a user did 0, 1, 2 searches, it's going to be 2 for once I group their session back together. So when I did the match split, I broke up that session based on the number of searches. When I did the combine, I just combined it back together, but I had that extra information there, which is the number of searches that occurred. So here we see num searches 1 in that session, 2, 1 in that session, 2, 4 in that session, and so on. And then I have that hasWatched value that I created too for the session. So I kind of have my 2 pieces of information that I need now. I have the number of searches that happened ahead of the first watch start, and then I have whether or not they actually got to a watch start. So I'm going to plot this. I'm going to go over to plot, and on the x-axis I'm going to put the number of searches we just calculated. And on the y-axis, I'm going to look at the has watched value, but I need to aggregate that. I want to take the average of it. Remember, it's 1 or 0, so now I'm going to get the percentage of people that were able or got to watch start. If I go over here and look at 0, it's 85%, and that's exactly what we saw in the conversion video for people that did not search. So basically what we've done is take that data from the conversion video and now start to split the people that did search up into how many searches they did. You can see this starts to decrease roughly as I increase the number of searches. The data starts to get pretty sparse out here. The number of people that did 16 searches is probably pretty small. So I'm going to try a few things here. I'm going to change the type to string, and this just makes it a little easier to read, removes the negative numbers and so on. And then I'm going to try to bin this by 10 bins. Let's see how that looks. Maybe 5. Well, this looks pretty good, especially if there aren't a lot of people that did more than 3 searches. So here's my 85% for 0, 65 for 1 search, 63 for 2, 61 for 3, and then 4 or more is 58%. So obviously it's slightly better to do 1 search than we saw in the aggregated, and we see that as you do more searches it sort of drops off. So this gets to the intensity of the behavior and its impact on outcome, in our case, the first watch start. Alright, so we did a few things here. We created a tag for a whole bunch of events, and then we replaced our whole sequence with the things in that tag. We created a summary variable for has watched, for people that did or did not watch within their session. And then we did a technique that I think you'll find yourself doing a lot, which is splitting something and then counting, or basically recombining it but aggregating on some value in between. Looks like I did a heart there. Nice. And so that gave us the number of searches that we can then use in our plot. I hope that helps.